This is the homework for completing the square. I'm going to go ahead and give you examples of how to solve these problems. You're required to do 1 through 8. So we're going to start with number 1. Solve each quadratic equation by using the square root. Write your answer in simplest form. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the square root of both sides. So you're left with x minus 2 is equal to, once you get the square root of 25, it's going to be positive or negative 5. You're always going to have two answers. You're either going to have a positive or a negative once you get the square root of 25. Then you add 2 to both sides. So you have positive negative 5 plus 2. So your first answer is 7, or negative 5 plus 2, which is going to be x equals negative 3. So number 2, we're going to go ahead and do the same steps just like we did number 1. We're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. So what we're left with is x plus 4 squared is equal to 16. Since 32 divided by 2 is 16. So you notice that we have x plus 4 to the second power. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the square root of the left side, and you get the square root of the right side, and what do you have? You're left with x plus 4 equals, the square root of 16 is going to be either a positive or negative 4. Now if you want to separate this, you can. So your two answers are x plus 4 equals 4, or x plus 4 equals negative 4. That's what the plus and minus indicates, that there's two possible answers. So you're going to subtract 4 from both sides. So you have x equals 0. Subtract 4 on the second equation, and you have x equals negative 8. For number 3, we notice that we don't have a number in front of the parentheses, so you can automatically find the square root of both sides. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the square root of the left side, and I'm going to find the square root of the right side. And so what you're left with is x plus 3. Since if I didn't indicate this, when you have a square root and you have a square, they kind of like cancel. Equals plus or minus square root of 18. That plus and minus means there's two answers there. Then what you do is subtract 3 from both sides. So you have x equals, normally the integer comes first, you have negative 3. Then you have a plus and minus square root of 18, and you normally leave it like that. Now square root of 18 can be simplified. In other words, you're looking for a perfect number. A perfect number is a number that you're able to get the square root. So for example, the square root of 9 times the square root of 2 gives you 18, but we know that the square root of 9 is 3. So square root of 18 simplifies to 3 square root of 2. So I know that in the instructions it said to simplify. So it's negative 3 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. Just make a note. I'm simplifying right here. And these are the steps that I took to simplify. All right? Square root of 18 is equal to square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Square root of 9 is a perfect, or 9 is a perfect number. You're able to find the square root, so it's 3. For number 4, we do have 4 that's in front of the parentheses. So that has to be addressed. So how do you address that? What you're going to do is you're going to divide the left side by 4 and the right side by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. So you're left with x minus 5 squared is equal to 64 divided by 4 is 16. On the left side, you're going to get the square root. On the right side, you get the square root. Once again, the square root and the square cancel. So you have x minus 5 equals plus and minus. The square root of 16 is 4. In this case, since we have an integer, you can kind of separate this into two equations. So you have x minus 5 equals 4, and you have x minus 5 equals negative 4. You add 5 to both sides on the left-hand side. So you're solving for x here, so you have x equals 9. So that's the first answer, or first possibility. The second equation, you add 5. So you have x equals 5 plus negative 4 gives you 1. So your answer is either 9 or... For number 5, we're going to solve this by completing the square. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to complete the square. We have x squared minus 4x. That minus 12, we want it on the right side. So it's going to be equal to 12 since you have to add 12 to both sides. So you have to complete the square. So you have x squared minus 4x plus c. And if you add c to the left side, then you have to add c to the right side. And I'm going to show you how to find c. So how do we find c? C is equal to b, which is negative 4 divided by 2. And what you do is you're going to square it. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2 squared. You're still going to square it. So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. There's your c. So you have x squared minus 4x plus 4. And since we want to balance the equation, you have to add 4 to the right side. So let me highlight this here. If I highlight this, this is a perfect square. And what do I mean that it's a perfect square? It's a perfect square because it's going to be x minus 2 times x minus 2 equals 12 plus 4, which is give you 16. See how x minus 2 and x minus 2 are identical? So it's x minus 2 squared equals 16. And just like we did before in the 4 problems before this, we're going to go ahead and find the square root of both sides. So we have x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 4. So what are your two equations? You have x minus 2 equals 4, or x minus 2 is equal to negative 4. You add 2 to both sides on the right side, the right and left side for this equation. So you have x equals 6. So your first solution is x equals 6. The next one you add 2, so you have x equals negative 2. For number 6, we have 2x squared minus 4x equals 70. We got to see if there's any number that they have in common. So if we look at the left side, we do notice that there is a 2 in common. So we're going to go ahead, and this is called factoring. We're going to factor the 2. We're left with x squared minus 2x. And if you look on the right, I have a 70 there. So now, since I don't want the 2 here, I'm going to divide by 2. So what do I have? I have x squared minus 2x equals 70 divided by 2, which is 35. Now I'm going to complete the square. So I have x squared minus 2x plus c equals 35. And since I want to balance the equation, I have to add c to the right side. So how do I find c? I'm going to show you. you're going to get the value of b. The value of b is negative 2. So you're going to get negative 2, then divide by 2, and then you square it. So we have negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1 square. Negative 1 squared gives you 1. So I've already found c. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go back and you're going to substitute. So you have x squared minus 2x, and this is plus 1 equals 35 plus 1. And this, remember, is x minus 1. X minus 1 is equal to 36. And we notice that we have x minus 1 and x minus 1. So this will be x minus 1 squared equals 36. So we're going to go ahead and find the square root of the left side, square root of the right side. So we have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 36 is 6. So you have either x minus 1 is equal to 6 or x minus 1 is equal to negative 6. You add 1 to both sides. So you have x equals 7. You add 1 to both sides. So you have x equal negative 5. So the answer could be 7 or negative 5. Now you notice for this problem the 12x is on the right side. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to subtract 12x from the right side, and you end up with 6x squared minus 12x equals 18. So you notice that you have 6x squared minus 12x. You're going to factor a 6. And since we have a 6 in front of the parentheses, we're going to divide by 6 both sides. So you have x squared minus 2x, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this part. You didn't need that. X squared minus 2x is equal to 18 divided by 6 is 3. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to complete the square. So we have x squared minus 2x plus c equals 3 plus c. And you're going to ask, how do I complete the square? I'm going to show you how to complete the square. You have c, you have negative 2, which is b, divided by 2, square. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1 squared. And negative 1 squared is 1. So what you're going to have is you're going to have x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 3 plus 1. So we have to balance the equation. So we notice that this is going to be x minus 1 times x minus 1 is equal to 4. And that's a perfect square. So you have x minus 1 squared equals 4. Get the square root of both sides. So it's x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 2. So your two possibilities are x minus 1 equals 2 or x minus 1 is equal to negative 2. So these are two equations that I know everybody can solve. You add 1 to both sides. So x equals 3. On this side, you're going to add 1. You're going to add 1. So you have x equals negative 1. For number 8, we have x squared. And that minus 95 has to go on the right side, so that's going to be 95. And that 14x, you got to subtract both sides, so it's going to be minus 14x. So now remember, we have to find c, and we're going to solve this by completing the square. So we have x squared minus 14x plus c equals 95 plus c. And to find c, it's going to be actually the coefficient b, negative 14, divided by 2, and then you're going to square it. So let's go ahead and do the division. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7 squared, and that's going to give you 49. So you have x squared minus 14x plus 49 is equal to 95 plus 49, because you have to balance the equation. So you're going to have here x minus 7 times x minus 7 is equal to 95 plus 49. So I'm just going to quickly use my calculator. 95 plus 49. That's 144, which I like. So you have x minus 7 squared is equal to 144. You're going to get the square root of the left side, the square root of the right side. So you have x minus 7 is equal to 12, actually plus or minus 12. So your two possibilities are x minus 7 is equal to 12, or x minus 7 is equal to negative 12. You add 7 to both sides. That's going to give you 19. You're going to add 7 to both sides, and you're going to get negative 5.